One of the ways you understand a society is through its infrastructure, the places where people gather, the places where they go to travel. If you've got a lot of people in one place, it tells you a lot about the people. So with that in mind, we're standing in front of the Kievskaya metro station, and there's a train station next to it. Now, the metro station was built by Joseph Stalin 70 years ago. And the question is, how's it doing now, after 70 years? So we went into it to take a look, and what we found shocked us.
In a few short weeks, Tucker Carlson has interviewed Russian President/dictator Vladimir Putin with high praise, marveled at Russian infrastructure built by Joseph Stalin 70 years ago, become awestruck by the absence of bombs in Russian subways, and to crown it all, got radicalized by the low prices of groceries in Russian supermarkets.
Coming to a Russian grocery store, the heart of evil, and seeing what things cost and how people live, it will radicalize you against our leaders. That's how I feel anyway, radicalized.
Safe to say, Tucker Carlson has gone full-blown communist. When you look at Tucker Carlson, what comes to mind? For me, looking at Tucker Carlson, the quintessential American patriot comes to mind. The man who for years championed Trump's sentiments of America first, preaching it from Fox News pulpit to millions of Americans who lapped up his words like literal gospel. Tucker has been so entrenched in this idea of America first that he even championed the Great Replacement theory, claiming first that whites were being replaced in America and later revised for the sake of inclusivity to Americans are being replaced by hordes of alien invaders from the southern border.
Now, I know that the left and all the little gatekeepers on Twitter become literally hysterical if you use the term replacement, if you suggest that the Democratic Party is trying to replace the current electorate, the voters now casting ballots, with new people, more obedient voters from the third world. But they become hysterical because that's what's happening, actually.
So strong was Tucker's America First stance that he made him despise fellow conservative and right-wing pundit Ben Shapiro for suggesting the U.S. supports its closest ally, Israel, in its conflict with Hamas.
You know, I've got 4 draft-age children. So if you're playing recklessly, fast and loose with their lives, then I have a right to despise you, and I do. So if you're Nikki Haley, who's running for president, or Ben Shapiro, or half the people I see on television casually mentioning the possibility of nuclear war or sending Americans to fight in the Middle East, or in any way involving us in a war that has nothing to do with prosperity and peace at home, nothing, in other words, to do with us, Americans, then I have a right to call you out and be really offended because it's my family. They live here. It's not a joke to me. There's nothing abstract about it.
So it goes without saying that Tucker Carlson is a great American patriot that believes and holds America above anything else, right? Well, we're about to find out how true that is. It turns out Tucker Carlson no longer believes that America is the greatest thing under the sun. Russia now takes that position in his worldview, and it all started with Tucker's interview of Russian President Vladimir Putin, which was essentially a 2-hour lesson on Russian history given by Putin, in which there was no meaningful pushback by Tucker, who may as well have said Putin is right, the history of Russia justifies Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Tucker's interview revealed the smallness of Vladimir Putin. Before that interview, even though I didn't support Russia's aggression against Ukraine, I thought Putin was some sort of genius playing high-level 3D chess. I thought the reasons for his invasion of Ukraine were so sophisticated that when he finally revealed them, I would be in such awe and admiration for the genius of the man. But Putin's history lesson as justification for the war fell flat and revealed the smallness of a man who started a needless war for the sake of his overinflated ego. Tucker wasn't the only one to de facto endorse the Russian president. The GOP's anointed king, Donald Trump, has been full of praise for Russia and Putin to the extent that he even suggested that Putin go ahead and attack NATO members who refuse to pay up.
They asked me that question. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, you didn't pay? You're delinquent? He said, yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills. And the money came flowing in.
Trump spoke like a true mafia boss. NATO members must pay protection money to the US, lest the US take its protection away and allow a rival gang to come in and rough them up. What was even more telling was the response by the American audience listening to Trump, who largely seemed to agree with him and took no issues with the potentially treasonous statements made by Trump, inviting the enemies of America to attack America's allies, knowing full well that such an attack would also be viewed as an attack on the US itself. But this video is not about Trump, it's about Tucker Carlson. So let's delve into Tucker Carlson's descent into shilling for Russian dictatorship because of cheap groceries. Now, if you're looking for something fun and exciting to read, check out my crime fiction novel, which features a debate on race and colonialism. Grab a copy and enjoy the read. The link is in the description of the video.
So a long-standing feature, maybe the longest-standing feature of Cold War propaganda in the West was the Soviet grocery store. No products, no choices, shoddily made things. And it wasn't actually propaganda, it was real. And you can look up the pictures on the internet if you want.
Hold up a second. Was Western information about Russian grocery stores during the Cold War propaganda or not? Because Tucker seemed to have called it propaganda and a few seconds later say it wasn't propaganda. So which is it, Tucker? And I actually agree with Tucker that the Cold War era in the West and even now has been riddled with anti-Russian/Soviet communist propaganda. Ironically, it was Tucker's side, the right, that has been responsible for such propaganda that he now decries. Amazing. Now that Russia is becoming the good guys in the eyes of right-wing Americans, how soon before they claimed that it was the left that was responsible for anti-Russian propaganda in the West?
So we thought it would be interesting to take a look at a contemporary, modern-day, 2024 Russian grocery store 2 years into sanctions. All right, there we go. So I guess you put in 10 rubles here and you get it back when you put the cart back. So it's free, but there's an incentive to return it and not just bring it to your homeless encampment. Okay, this is the grocery cart escalator. This is designed, I'm figuring this out now, where the wheels don't move, they lock on the grocery cart escalator. Look, Ma, no hands.
Tucker is acting like someone who has never stepped foot outside of the US and is truly amazed that civilization exists outside the US. What was he expecting to find in Russia? Was he expecting to find no shopping malls or carts or groceries? Was he expecting them to be living as though they were cavemen? I bet if Tucker goes to North Korea, he'd find similar things to be impressed about. But ask Tucker to leave the capital city or whatever big city he visited in Russia and go to the heart and interior of Russia and see if he will still be that impressed.
So we're gonna try and buy what a family of four would buy every week, and we're gonna see what the selection is and we're gonna see what it costs. Now, Russia is famous for its bread, which is one thing I can assess pretty well. The low-carb lifestyle has not swept Russia. Thank heaven, because I mean, look at that. It's fresh, too. Look at that. Oh, come on. Unicorn and mini mills. All right. I went from amused to legitimately angry. So we were guessing what this would cost. Everybody hears from the United States, buys groceries, and we didn't pay any attention to costs as we were just putting in the cart what we would actually eat over a week. And we all came in around 400 bucks, about 400 bucks. It was $104 US here. And that's when you start to realize that ideology maybe doesn't matter as much as you thought, corruption. If you take people's standard of living and you tank it through filth and crime and inflation, and they literally can't buy the groceries they want, at that point, maybe it matters less what you say or whether you're a good person or a bad person. You're wrecking people's lives in their country, and that's what our leaders have done to us. And coming to a Russian grocery store, the heart of evil, and seeing what things cost and how people live, it will radicalize you against our leaders. That's how I feel anyway, radicalized.
So it doesn't matter that Russia is a dictatorship where political dissent is suppressed or dissidents like Navalny and Prigozhin are killed. As long as groceries are cheap, Russia is a wonderful country that the US should probably emulate. I'm sure Tucker would think that many African countries are living in paradise when he finds out how much groceries $400 can buy in these countries. These are the sort of silly things that impresses right-wingers like Tucker Carlson. So reductionist and simplistic without taking into consideration the complexities of Russian society. Tucker is so full of praise for Russia because groceries are cheap. Tucker's radicalization is even less impressive when you consider the fact that Russians spend approximately 33% of their monthly income on food, while Americans spend only about 11% of their monthly income on food. But I guess 33% is bigger than 11%, so Russia must be doing better. What a moron. So that's the video. If you like what we do on this channel, consider becoming a channel member or patron. However, your likes, shares, and views are just as valued.